Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, the game of nerves as talks continue between Iran and the U.S., while Christian pilgrims flock to Jerusalem for Holy Week. Plus, discoveries under the tomb at the Holy Sepulcher reveal it was once a garden. Analysis about Turkey's President Erdogan, whose ambitions may exceed those of Iran's. And modern miracles at the site known as the Garden Tomb. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. This past weekend, the U.S. and Iran met for the first time in direct negotiations. The outcome of these talks may shift the future of the Middle East. Here's the latest on that story and others from our news desk. Little was publicized in Oman from the first negotiations between the Iranians and the Trump administration on Iran's potential nuclear weapons. But more talks will be held Saturday, and both sides tried to sound upbeat.
Nothing matters until you get it done, so I don't like talking about it, but it's going okay. The Iran situation's going pretty good.
As a first session, it was a constructive meeting. It took place in a calm and very respectful environment.
The greatest fear for many Israelis is the Iranian regime will drag these talks out as it actually finishes developing nuclear weapons and then has the ability to destroy Israel. And some worry it appears the Iranian negotiators are already trying to stall.
The American side said their aim is to reach an agreement in the shortest possible time. But of course, this won't be easy. It's still too early to talk about that.
Trump may not be willing to put up with any stalling. He told reporters on Sunday,
"We'll be making a decision on Iran very quickly."
In Gaza, Israeli forces continue ever more fierce attacks on Hamas. They're capturing more land, in one case totally cutting off Hamas stronghold Rafah from the rest of Gaza. Israel's defense minister warned Gazans over the weekend the only way to stop the destruction is for them to end it themselves. Israel Katz stated, "It is time to stand up and remove Hamas and release all the Israeli hostages. This is the only way to end the war." The Jewish state has declared until Hamas frees all the hostages, Israel will continue to take more and more of Gaza and turn the captured land into vast buffer zones.
Many areas are being seized and added to the security zones of the State of Israel, leaving Gaza smaller and isolated.
This hurts Hamas because one of the greatest catastrophes for Islamists is to lose land to non-Muslims. Some Gazans gathered in church to mark Palm Sunday, despite their suffering as the war grinds on.
The situation has gotten out of hand. Our situation is unbearable. The situation is tragic.
Iran may be trying to drag out negotiations with the Americans so it can continue to rush to develop nuclear weapons without U.S. and Israeli forces wiping out its nuclear facilities. But President Trump insists these talks must go fast and warns the Iranians are no longer dealing with previous U.S. administrations who'd let them stall.
We're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast, because they're fairly close to having one, and they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us, I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Does that include a potential strike on Iranian nuclear facilities?
Of course it does.
In Gaza, Hamas has apparently rejected the latest hostage deal, so the fighting will go on. The terror group says it's willing to free the remaining hostages, but only if Israel permanently ends the destructive war and all its troops leave Gaza. Israel won't do that without Hamas totally disarming, but the terror group absolutely refuses to lay down its weapons.
This weekend, thousands of Christians from around the world walked the road Jesus is believed to have traveled as he rode into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday.
It's really nice to have such a joyful day because sometimes it can be a bit heavy to live here with everything that's going on and the horrible situation right now.
Pilgrims walked in a cold rain, but it didn't dampen spirits as they carried palm branches and sang hymns.
I hope everyone around the world could join us here in Jerusalem for the procession I wish that the war will stop soon and everything will come back to normal.
So it's actually nice to see there's a celebratory moment where people unite, people from all over the world, Palestinians, pilgrims, church members, and it was a really wonderful moment to join the procession.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
This week, Holy Week, is very special for Christians around the world. It's when they commemorate the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, as described in the New Testament. Some recent discoveries at the Church of the Holy Sepulcher validate John's Gospel account, which recounts Calvary and the site of Jesus' burial being in the middle of a garden. The new discoveries happened during a recent restoration around the tomb, when excavators dug below the level of the original 4th century memorial. I spoke with the lead archaeologist, Dr. Francesca Stassola. Professor Francesca Romana Stassola, thanks so much for joining us. You've been working there in the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. Tell us what you discovered.
The excavation in the Church of the Holy Sepulcher has allowed us to rediscover the long history of Jerusalem. The oldest evidence is related to a quarry from the Iron Age and in the settlement sequence of the Roman city. The first Christianization of Jerusalem because of Emperor Constantine, the first monuments built in memory of the death of Christ, and finally the entire architectural sequence up to the modern age.
Professor, did what you find there in your excavations, did it confirm what it says in the Gospel of John?
During the excavations, we noticed how the large quarry, as it was gradually abandoned, was used for burials according to Jewish custom, so there were rooms dug into the rock. At the same time, some areas had terraces made with dry stone walls, and within these small spaces we found traces of cultivation. Paleobotanical analyses of pollen that revealed traces of cultivation. This data somehow echoes the Gospel of John, which speaks of vegetable gardens and gardens in the area of the venerated tomb and Calvary. For me, the reconstruction of the historical sequence is very important, and digging is like reading a book and turning a page, only they are pages of earth. You turn one page at a time, and so the important thing is precisely this long story. It also becomes exciting to deal with such an important story, with a story told in this way and with a story so felt by millions of people.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you to you.
Bene. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good Easter.
Okay, you too. Happy Easter. Well, what a wonderful confirmation of the details written about Jesus' burial in John's Gospel. You can follow us this week also retracing the steps of Jesus from Palm Sunday to Resurrection Morning on Jerusalem Dateline's Facebook page, or search for CBN News on YouTube. Turkey is stepping into the limelight more in the Middle East and spreading its influence and presence in Syria. Experts are saying it doesn't stop there. Turkey's president has a much broader vision, and that's cause for concern here in Israel. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more.
The concern is Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan may have aspirations that are even greater than Iran's.
If we are talking about the influence in Syria, he already took the place of Russia and Iran. But I think given the Ottoman glorious past, I think his ambitions are far more bigger than Iran's.
Born and raised in Turkey, Chai Eitan Cohen Yanorocek monitors its actions for the Moshe Dayan Center as well as the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. He tells CBN News one shouldn't underestimate Erdogan when he insists the borders of Turkey are larger than they are now.
We do see the boundaries of the Ottoman Empire. So as much as Belgrade, he is talking about Jerusalem. As much as Athens, he is talking about other cities like Cairo and other cities inside the Middle East. So I don't think that it is limited within the boundaries of the Middle East.
The Ottoman Empire, also known as the Turkish Empire, began more than 700 years ago, eventually controlling Southeast Europe as well as parts of West Asia, North Africa, and the Middle East up to the early 20th century. After World War I, the Allied powers partitioned the Ottoman Empire, including what became known as Palestine. Jana Rocic says December's fall of Syrian President Bashar Assad opened the door for Erdogan to implement his goal of reviving an empire, beginning with Syria.
We all witnessed that since the beginning of the Syrian civil war. The Turkish president provided everything he has to the Syrian opposition. And he is turning the current Syrian administration as his core ally by providing some civilian services like paving the roads, paving railways, providing radars, and repairing airports and other facilities. Turkey is creating here a very important dependency from the Syrian side.
Jana Rocic adds Turkey is the only country declaring an intention to build up the new Syrian army, while the U.S. has demanded that it destroys its chemical weapons and renounce terrorism. On paper, Israel and Turkey have shared diplomatic relations since 1949, although Erdogan's moves could put that at risk.
The Turkish president, at the end of the el-Fitr celebrations, he unfortunately wished for the destruction of Israel, especially after October the 7th. We cannot tolerate some, future threats.
Since the Assad regime fell, Israel has bombed weapons stockpiles and strategic military locations while establishing a buffer zone along its border with Syria. Israel is concerned both with those who control Syria and Turkey's involvement.
They are already building governmental facilities to sort of show a type of sovereignty in the Syrian land as well. You see Turkey building post offices, banks, Turkish banks who are using Turkish currency, schools.
Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell tells CBN News Israel has two priorities regarding Syria: the safety of Israel and the protection of minorities, including the Christians, Druze, and Kurds. Then there's the outlier.
Turkey is a great concern in what is happening in Syria now. Not just that, we need to hear their declarations and their speeches of their leadership. And that's really concerning, in particularly statements and discourse in regards to Jerusalem. These are declarations who are a red line in regards to Israel, but it shows their intention.
Haskell adds that intention goes beyond Israel.
After what had happened in Syria, they feel like they're on a high horse. But that should be a great concern to all the neighboring countries around.
President Trump recently offered to smooth out any difficulties between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Erdogan.
Any problem that you have with Turkey, I think I can solve. As long as you're reasonable. You have to be reasonable.
Jana Rocic says it's also the first time the U.S. could have access to Syria, which used to be under Russia's thumb and is now being influenced by Turkey, a NATO member.
Now Donald Trump has the opportunity to penetrate into Syria and maybe to play a role for its reconstruction. The name of the game here is money. And since we are talking about the US president and he's a very successful businessman, I believe that the last thing that the American president is looking for in Syria is friction between the state of Israel and Turkey.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Jesus rising from the dead is the most celebrated miracle in Christianity. And in the very place many believe that wondrous event occurred, it seems miracles, signs, and wonders still happen. Our correspondent Paul Strand tells us more from his conversations with eyewitnesses at Jerusalem's Garden Tomb.
The great miracle of Jesus Christ's resurrection took place right here in the Garden Tomb, or one much like it. But the miracles didn't stop then. They still go on today, and even right here. Cesar Fleitas works here and recalls a time when a man from Romania came here who had incredibly poor eyesight. Then this man walked into the tomb.
He wanted to look at the symbol that is inside the tomb, the symbol of a cross that has the Greek letters, and he wasn't able to make out the symbol very well. So he removed his glasses, and then all of a sudden, he was able to see perfectly. I hear the men screaming inside the tomb saying, I can see, I can see. Of course, he was speaking in Romanian. His pastor, who was standing nearby, he translated for me. He said, he can see.
Another miracle that took place involved a boy who suffered from hydrocephalus, an abnormal and dangerous buildup of fluid deep in the brain. Now, every year his family came from Ecuador to the Garden Tomb. This young man, Giancarlo Rodriguez, was that little boy, and back then he was paralyzed from the waist down due to the hydrocephalus.
20 plus years ago, they came as a family. They brought their son inside the tomb, and as they were praying, all of a sudden they hear their son crying. The husband turned around to look back to see what was going on. And then all of a sudden they see their son standing there. And that was the miracle. The healing took place at that moment.
Before that healing, Giancarlo's sister had lost her faith.
She couldn't understand why God would allow such a thing to happen to her brother. But then after she saw the healing that God performed in her brother's body, that became the turning point in her life.
I simply want to say that Giancarlo is proof that God is real.
As for Giancarlo's whole family now,
they're all involved in ministry, serving the Lord.
Liz Tingman chronicles signs and wonders that happen at the Garden Tomb. She told CBN News about Pastor Hobson Laura. He'd suffered an extremely painful, unending headache since he was 13. Then in 2010, this 48-year-old visited the tomb.
He suddenly was overwhelmed with this uncontrollable urge to weep as he went into the tomb. And then he came out and he went on to the area over here near the olive trees, and he said he just held on to an olive tree because he was weeping uncontrollably. And he said he was praying for 40 minutes. And when the weeping stopped, he realized that he was healed. He had no headache. And he'd had this headache since the age of 13.
Fleitas experienced his own miracle when a visiting Brazilian pastor came out of the tomb, insisting God just told him to pray for Fleitas' healing. Little did he know, Fleitas had been suffering from sharp liver pains for years.
And he looked at me and he said to me, I want you to understand that the power comes from the Lord. It is the Lord God Almighty that heals you. And then he anointed me with oil and he prayed over me. And that sharp pain that I was experiencing was gone, completely gone.
And forever?
Yes, it's gone.
Tingman also recalled a Japanese non-believer who a guide took around, starting at the overlook of Skull Hill, where many believe Christ was crucified.
And she took her to Skull Hill and explained about Calvary and so on. And this woman said, she spoke English, she said, I know nothing about Jesus Christ. Tell me more. She went into the tomb, and my colleague said when she was in the tomb, she was visibly moved. Something was moving her, and she was weeping actually. And she said, I can see him. And my friend said, what can you see? She said, I see a man with a crown on his head. Now this is a woman who didn't know anything about the gospel stories. And she said, it's not a gold crown. And she began to describe a crown of thorns on this man's head that she was seeing.
If you don't know this Jesus Christ, well, we Christians believe that he can save you, heal you, perform a miracle for you right now on the spot. All you have to do is pray and ask him. That's the good news of Easter. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Garden Tomb, Jerusalem.
In the Bible, God admonishes his people to take care of widows and orphans, which can include single mothers and their children. CBN Israel heard about one single mom in distress, and thanks to the generosity of our partners, they offered practical assistance. Here's their story.
Luba had hopes of a better future when she and her husband immigrated to Israel in 2010 from Ukraine. The fitness trainer and mother of two overcame countless challenges to make a home for her family. All was well until her husband, Yevgeny, relapsed on his former drug addiction.
He was very aggressive and would verbally attack me and my children. My youngest started having hysteria attacks where he would become unresponsive. My oldest was constantly stressed. She didn't want to see or talk to him.
Yevgeny's addiction only got worse. He lost his job, then he left, taking what he could and leaving his family to fend for themselves.
He started taking things from home, my jewelry, even my wedding ring. With the war, I couldn't find work. It got so bad I didn't have enough money to pay for electricity or buy food.
Luba struggled for months until a friend at church told her about how CBN Israel helps families like hers in their time of need. She reached out and was surprised by their response.
I didn't think they would help. I felt like I did not deserve it, but they helped me and it was so quick. I could finally pay off debts and they brought us food. It's winter and I couldn't dry children's clothes I washed. To my surprise, they even bought me a dryer.
Thanks to you, Luba was able to receive immediate assistance that helped her get back on her feet. After months of despair, she and her family can now focus on rebuilding.
Your organization makes such a big difference. You don't leave people behind. You don't leave people hungry. I am so grateful. One day, I hope I will also help other people the way you do. Now I can finally get some rest. Thanks to you, I have hope. Hope for a better future. Now I know everything will be all right.
On a sad note, Israel and the Jewish world just lost a dear friend, Yaakov Kirshen, otherwise known as Mr. Dry Bones. He died this week at the age of 87. Kirshen's cartoon Dry Bones went around the world and often in one cartoon expressed more information and truth than a long op-ed or article. Kirshen explained to CBN News one time why he named his cartoon Dry Bones.
When I came to Israel and decided I would start doing a cartoon, I thought, well, I needed a name, like Kirshen's Corner, with corner spelt with a K. And I kept thinking, what should it be? And then I realized that one of the things that had brought me to Israel was my reading of the book of Ezekiel. And in the book of Ezekiel, this guy Ezekiel, who lived 2,600 years ago, saw a vision of what to him was the far future. And that was of a time when it looked like the world had destroyed the Jewish people. But at that point, we would come out of our graves, and the image he saw was of a valley filled with dry bones. And these bones came together, like the knee bone connected to the shin bone and all like that. And in that imagery, he saw the rebuilding of the Jewish state. He saw the coming together and the ingathering of the Jewish people. He saw the rebuilding of the cities and the planting of the trees. And therefore, if I was going to do a cartoon about what was happening today, all I could do would be to add to what he had seen incredibly 2,600 years ago. And so I decided to call it Dry Bones, thinking that everyone would understand.
Kirshen is survived by his wife, Sally. To keep up with her or to find out about how you can assist her, you'll find more information on Facebook on their page called Dry Bones. Yaakov was a wonderful friend to us at the CBN Bureau and a great defender of the rights of persecuted Christians around the world. We're going to miss him, and may his memory be a blessing. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us this week, retracing the steps of Jesus from Palm Sunday to Resurrection Morning on Jerusalem Dateline's Facebook page, or just search for CBN News on YouTube. And don't forget to sign up for our email blast to receive updates on breaking news. And as always, thank you for your prayers. And please keep it up. Pray for the release of the remaining hostages from Gaza and for Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. And may the God of the angel armies protect all those who call upon his name. I'm Chris Mitchell, wishing you a blessed Holy Week. And on behalf of all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.